It all started as a dare, an innocent, spur-of-the-moment bet that spiraled into something far bigger than I ever imagined. My best friend, Jamie, had always teased me about my androgynous features. "You make a pretty convincing girl," he joked one lazy Saturday afternoon as we watched reruns of some old sitcom. My laugh was half nervous, half curious. I didn't take it seriously until he threw out the words that changed everything, "Bet you couldn't do it for a week. You wouldn't last a day in a dress." Challenge accepted. The first hurdle was shopping. If I was going to pull this off, I had to look the part, and that meant diving headfirst into the world of women's fashion. Jamie tagged along, naturally, because his idea of support involved cracking jokes about every skirt, blouse, and pair of heels I awkwardly handled. But I was determined. The shopping mall was a labyrinth of fabrics, colors, and judgmental glances from strangers who weren't quite sure if I was shopping for myself or someone else. A sales associate, a bubbly woman named Chloe, eventually noticed my deer-in-headlights expression and stepped in. "Shopping for your girlfriend?" she asked with a knowing smile. I cleared my throat. Something like that." She nodded like she'd heard it 100 times before. "Well, let's make sure you impress her then." Chloe whisked me away to a fitting room with a mountain of clothes I didn't even know how to pronounce, let alone wear. She picked out a simple floral dress, a pair of skinny jeans, and a soft pink blouse that looked like it belonged on a Pinterest board. When she handed me the dress, my palms began to sweat. "Try this on first," she said, her eyes sparkling. "Trust me." The fitting room mirror became my first real confrontation with the idea. There I was, standing in a dress, hair tucked into a makeshift bun, with no makeup or accessories, just me. And yet, as I turned and looked at my reflection, a different version of myself began to emerge. It wasn't just the dress. It was the possibility of being someone else entirely, someone free from the constraints of how people expected me to act, dress, or exist. Jamie was waiting outside the fitting room, leaning casually against the wall. When I stepped out, his jaw dropped. For a moment, there was no joke, no sarcastic comment, just silence. Then he grinned. "Well, you're definitely going to win the bet." Shopping was a success. Now came the hard part. School. Monday morning arrived far too quickly. The plan was simple: blend in, act natural, and survive. I'd spent hours on YouTube tutorials the night before, learning how to do a basic makeup look. My eyeliner was a bit wobbly, and my mascara clumped in one corner, but overall, I didn't look half bad. I wore the floral dress Chloe had recommended, paired with white sneakers that felt more me than the heels Jamie had insisted on. My wig, a shoulder-length chestnut brown with soft curls, completed the look. As I stood in front of the school entrance, I felt my heart pounding like a drum. This wasn't just a game anymore. It was real. Every glance, every whisper, every potential stare felt magnified. But I told myself to breathe, to walk in with confidence. Girls didn't hesitate at the door, so neither would I. The first few minutes were a blur. No one screamed, "Hey, that's a guy." No one pointed and laughed. In fact, most people didn't even notice me. I was just another student hurrying to class. Relief washed over me, but it didn't last long. My first challenge came in the form of Emily Barker. Emily was the queen bee of our school, a social tornado who swept up everyone in her path. She was standing by her locker with her entourage when she spotted me. "Hey, new girl," she called out, her voice sharp but playful. I froze. Jamie had warned me about her. "Just stay out of her way," he'd said. But here she was, already zeroing in on me. Hi," I said, my voice softer than usual. I'd practiced it in the mirror, trying to strike a balance between feminine and natural. Emily's eyes sparkled with curiosity. "You're new, right? I know everyone in this school, and I've definitely never seen you before." "Yeah, just transferred," I lied. The words tasted strange, but they flowed easier than I expected. Emily tilted her head, studying me like I was some rare exhibit. "Well, you're sitting with us at lunch. You can't just wander around alone like a lost puppy." And just like that, I was pulled into her orbit. Lunch was surreal. Sitting at Emily's table was like stepping into a teen movie. The girls talked about everything, boys, parties, drama, and I nodded along, laughing at the right moments and contributing when I could. It was exhausting but exhilarating. For the first time, I wasn't just another guy. I was someone different, someone they found interesting. But the real test came during gym class. Changing in the locker room was out of the question, so I faked a doctor's note to get excused from physical activities for the week. The coach, a gruff man with no patience for excuses, gave me a skeptical look but ultimately let it slide. I spent the period sitting on the bleachers, pretending to scroll through my phone while avoiding eye contact with everyone else. One day down, 4 to go. As the week went on, I started to settle into my new persona. I learned how to walk with a bit more sway, how to sit with my legs crossed, how to laugh in a way that didn't give me away. The girls at Emily's table began to treat me like one of their own, sharing secrets and gossip as if I'd been there all along. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were close calls, moments when I nearly slipped up, like the time I instinctively held the door open for a guy in my history class, earning a puzzled look. Or when I accidentally dropped my voice while laughing, causing Emily to glance at me suspiciously. Each time, I recovered quickly, but the anxiety was constant. By Thursday, I was starting to wonder if I'd taken this bet too far. It wasn't just the fear of being caught. It was the strange, growing realization that I liked this. I liked the freedom it gave me to express parts of myself I'd always kept hidden. I liked the camaraderie of sitting with the girls, the way they confided in me and made me feel included. It was addictive. Friday arrived, and with it, the culmination of my week-long experiment. Emily had invited me to a party at her house, and there was no backing out. Jamie, who'd been my lifeline through this whole ordeal, was ecstatic. "You've made it this far," he said. "What's one more night?" The party was a whirlwind of music, laughter, and neon lights. Emily introduced me to everyone as her new bestie, and for a while, I forgot about the bet, the disguise, everything. I danced, I laughed, I lived. But then it happened. I was standing by the snack table when one of Emily's guy friends, Ryan, struck up a conversation. He was charming, confident, and clearly interested. At first, I played along, thinking it was harmless. But as the night went on, his flirtation became more direct, and I started to panic. "I should go find Emily," I said, trying to escape. But Ryan stepped closer, his smile turning into a smirk. "Why are you so nervous? Relax. I don't bite." It was Jamie who saved me. He appeared out of nowhere, putting an arm around my shoulders and declaring, "Hey, babe, there you are. I've been looking for you." Ryan backed off, muttering something under his breath, and I felt an overwhelming wave of relief. When we left the party, Jamie turned to me, his expression serious. "You okay?" I nodded, but the truth was I wasn't sure. The week had been a roller coaster of emotions, and now that it was over, I didn't know how to feel. I'd survived living as a girl, but in doing so, I discovered parts of myself I couldn't ignore. The bet might have ended, but my journey was just beginning. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by an emotional freight train. Jamie's words from the night before echoed in my head, "You okay?" The truth was, I wasn't. The past week had stirred something inside me that I couldn't ignore. It wasn't just the clothes or the makeup, it was the way I felt in them, the way the world seemed to treat me differently. For once, I wasn't blending into the background. I was seen, and I liked it. But what did that mean for me now? I shuffled into the kitchen, still wearing the oversized t-shirt I'd thrown on after the party. Jamie was already there, pouring cereal into a bowl. "Morning, champ," he said with a grin. Or should I say, morning, queen? I rolled my eyes but couldn't help smiling. "Don't start." He leaned against the counter, studying me. "You really pulled it off, you know. Most people couldn't last a day doing what you did. And you went a whole week." "Yeah, well, it wasn't exactly easy," I admitted. "But it wasn't as hard as I thought it would be either." Jamie raised an eyebrow. "Meanings?" I hesitated. How could I put this into words? "I don't know. It's like, I felt more comfortable, in some ways. Like I was finally allowed to be me." He nodded slowly, his usual teasing demeanor replaced by something more serious. "You know, if you ever wanted to do it again, not for a bet, but just because I'd have your back. That simple statement hit me harder than I expected. Jamie had always been my partner in crime, but this felt different. It felt real. Thanks, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. The following Monday, I walked into school as my usual self, jeans, hoodie, messy hair. But everything felt off. The whispers and glances that had once seemed normal now felt like a spotlight on my back. At lunch, I sat with Jamie instead of Emily and her friends, watching them from afar. They were laughing, their voices carrying across the cafeteria. I missed it. I missed them. Emily caught my eye and waved, mouthing, "Come here." I shook my head, pretending I didn't hear her. How could I explain to her that the girl she'd invited into her circle didn't actually exist? By the end of the day, I was exhausted. The mask I'd worn all week, both as a girl and now as myself, was starting to crack. When I got home, I collapsed onto my bed, staring at the ceiling. What was wrong with me? Why couldn't I just go back to the way things were? 2 weeks passed and life went on, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. Every time I walked past a store window, I found myself glancing at the women's section, wondering what it would feel like to slip back into that world. The makeup tutorials I'd bookmarked were still on my phone, and the floral dress Chloe had picked out hung at the back of my closet, untouched but not forgotten. One evening, I pulled out the dress and held it up, my fingers brushing against the soft fabric. The memories of that week came flooding back. The nervous excitement, the thrill of being someone else, the way Emily had looked at me like I belonged. Before I could overthink it, I slipped the dress on, tugged my wig into place, and stood in front of the mirror. There she was again, the girl I'd spent a week pretending to be. Only this time, it didn't feel like pretending. It felt right. I grabbed my phone and snapped a quick picture, sending it to Jamie with the caption, "She's back." His reply came almost instantly. "Took you long enough. Want to hang out?" The next few weeks were a blur of experimentation. Jamie became my unofficial coach, helping me navigate this new version of myself. We went shopping again, this time without the pretense of a bet. Chloe was thrilled to see me back and didn't even ask why I was shopping in the women's section. "You've got great taste," she said, handing me a pair of high-waisted jeans that fit like a dream. At school, I kept my two identities separate. By day, I was my usual self, quiet, unassuming, blending into the crowd. But after school, I became her. We'd drive to the next town over, where no one knew us, and I'd let myself exist as the girl I was starting to think of as me. We went to coffee shops, bookstores, even a small concert where no one batted an eye at the boy-turned-girl sipping iced lattes and tapping her foot to the music. The more time I spent as her, the harder it became to switch back. One evening, Jamie and I were sitting in his car, parked outside my house. I was still wearing my wig and makeup, my dress wrinkled from a long day of walking around. He glanced at me, his usual smirk replaced by something softer. "You ever think about doing this full-time?" he asked. The question caught me off guard. I'd thought about it, of course, I had, but hearing him say it out loud made it feel real. "I don't know," I admitted. "What if people don't accept it? What if I'm not ready?" Jamie shrugged. "People are always going to have opinions. But at the end of the day, you have to live with yourself. And if this is who you are, then maybe it's worth the risk." His words stayed with me long after he dropped me off. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, imagining a life where I didn't have to hide. A life where I could walk into school as the girl I'd pretended to be and not feel like I was living a lie. The decision wasn't easy, and it didn't happen overnight. But little by little, I started to piece together a plan. I began confiding in people I trusted, Jamie first, of course, and eventually Chloe. Each time I told someone, the weight on my chest lifted a little more. By the time I worked up the courage to tell Emily, I was shaking like a leaf. We met at a coffee shop, away from prying eyes. I was dressed as my usual self, but I'd brought the wig and a change of clothes in my bag. Emily sipped her latte, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against the cup. "So, what's the big secret?" she asked, her tone playful but curious. I took a deep breath. "Do you remember that new girl you met a few weeks ago?" She nodded. "Of course. She just kind of disappeared, though. What happened to her? I hesitated, then pulled the wig out of my bag and set it on the table. Her eyes widened, and for a moment, I thought she might laugh. But she didn't. Instead, she leaned forward, her expression softening. "That was you?" she asked. I nodded, my throat dry.
Yeah.
It started as a bet, but it turned into something more. I've been figuring it out, but I think this is who I am. Emily stared at me for what felt like an eternity before breaking into a smile. "Well, that explains why you disappeared." I was wondering where my new bestie went. Relief washed over me like a tidal wave. "So, you're okay with this?" She rolled her eyes. "Of course, I'm okay with it. You're still you. And honestly, you make a better girl than half the people I know." With Emily's support, the next step was telling my parents. That was the hardest conversation of all. I won't sugarcoat it, it wasn't easy, and it didn't go perfectly. There were tears, questions, and a lot of awkward silences. But over time, they came around. They saw how much happier I was, how much more confident and comfortable I seemed. And slowly but surely, they started to understand. By the time the new school year rolled around, I was ready. I walked through those same doors I'd once dreaded, this time wearing a simple skirt and blouse, my hair styled into soft waves. My heart raced as I stepped into the hallway, but no one screamed, no one laughed. Most people didn't even notice. And those who did, they smiled. Emily was waiting by her locker, grinning from ear to ear. "There you are," she said, pulling me into a hug. "You're going to slay this year." Jamie appeared a moment later, giving me a thumbs up. "Told you you'd be fine." And for the first time in a long time, I believed him. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was living. Thank you so much for watching till now. It means the world to have you here. This community is all about empowering each other and celebrating the incredible journeys of everyone on their path to living authentically. If you're ever feeling lost or alone, remember you have a whole family here for you. Hit that subscribe button. Smash that like button. And let's keep inspiring each other, sending you all the love and strength in the world. Until next time, live your life by your rules.